I want to reflect a little bit on recent events, but before I do, I want to take us back over 40 years. This is a story that I still remember, which tells you something. So during the summer, over 40 years ago, I was about to start my first season at a sleepaway camp. And in those days, they let the parents bring you up a few days before to drop off your stuff, and then you would go back and take the bus with the rest of the kids. So my dad took me and my trunk, this heavy, crazy trunk filled with all sorts of stuff for the summer, up to the summer camp. And we drove over 2 hours. There was a lot of traffic, and we got there. And it was pretty quiet, but we noticed that there was some sounds coming out of the dining hall, so we went up to see what was going on. Turns out that the staff was there. They were getting ready. My dad and I walked in. My dad noticed that there was a gigantic urn filled with coffee and styrofoam cups next to the coffee. And he walked over sort of quietly. You know, my dad didn't like to make waves. And he was considering taking a cup of coffee when across the room, somebody who worked there saw him and said, "Just what do you think you're doing?" And my dad said, I just drove my son up here. It's going to be his first summer at summer camp. I just like to take a cup of coffee. And this person said, "The coffee isn't for you, it's for the people who work here." And so my dad put down the cup of coffee, and he had a few choice words for this person and a few choice words for the summer camp, but nevertheless, I went and it all turned out okay. And why am I telling this story? Because in Hebrew, there's a concept known as Rosh Katan, which means you're thinking small. Rosh, head. Your head is small. You can't wrap your brain around the larger picture. Here is a parent bringing his child. What an opportunity to say, "Welcome, have 2 cups of coffee. Knock yourself out." And instead, this person sank into Rosh Katan. I want to talk about Rosh Katan, small-headed thinking, and Rosh Gadol, large-headed thinking, and what that actually means in this important moment, because I actually think that with the challenges that are going on in Israel, the challenges that we're seeing here with a rise in unchecked anti-Semitism, particularly on our university campuses, that this is an opportunity for Rosh Gadol, for larger thinking, and sometimes, sadly, we see Rosh Katan. So many of us watched as 3 university professors were asked questions about what measures they are going to take specifically to protect the Jewish students on their campuses. And some of them gave responses like whether or not calling for genocide is something that we would oppose and impose penalties for on campus depends upon the context. Did this person also take an action, or was it just words? And these individuals probably thought that they were being appropriately careful, but so much of this is maddening and frustrating, and I would put it in the following context. These presidents were using Rosh Katan. They thought that they were being asked a legal question. They were instead being asked a moral question. Do you vouch for, as a moral principle, the safety of all of your students? And that includes making sure that there are consequences for the kinds of speech that call for wholesale destruction of entire groups of people. This was not a very complicated question, but these individuals answered with Rosh Katan. They probably were prepped. They were trying to make sure they didn't say anything that was legally problematic, and they missed an opportunity to exert larger moral leadership in this particular moment. By the way, even on the legal merits, most people that I've read suggest that they also missed the mark. This happens to be a private university, not a public university. They have more leeway to make sure that the speech that takes place on that campus is not dangerous speech. It certainly qualifies as hate speech. And here was an opportunity for Rosh Gadol, broader thinking, broader acting, and sadly, it became an opportunity for Rosh Katan. I'm going to take us back now thousands of years. The story in the Torah this morning is about a family. It is so easily for families to sink into Rosh Katan. You didn't invite me for Passover 20 years ago. I'm never going to invite you for Passover. And you can fill in your own examples. There are so many ways that families sink into a kind of myopic thinking, a pettiness that prevents true reconciliation and true growth. And we have it every step of the way in the story of Joseph and his brothers. He lords over them that the father seems to like him the best. And they put him into prison. And he goes down to Egypt and he gets knocked down, but he gets up again. And he becomes Mishneh LaMelech, second to the king. And when the brothers come, he leads with Rosh Katan. He leads with pettiness initially. He's going to turn the screws. He's going to take his revenge. But there are other forces at work, forces that lead towards a larger vision. One of the brothers standing there and looking at Joseph, not knowing who he is in that moment, they all need bread, that's why they're there. He says to Joseph, Kulanu b'nei ish echad nachnu. We are all children of the same individual. We are all brothers. What he meant consciously was those of us on this side of the room, not you, we're all brothers. But the rabbi said, Nitztana alav ruach hakodesh. In that moment, Joseph actually had, this brother had an inspiration, and he included Joseph. All of us are together. All of us are brothers. And what we're going to see is that there is a steady march towards Rosh Gadol. These brothers who could barely be in the same room together, these brothers who are brimming with age-old resentments, are able to get to a place of reconciliation. I believe that this is a time that we need to be cultivating larger thinking, thinking that comes from a head, a heart, a soul that is expansive, not thinking that gets so caught up in our own chambers that we can't move history forward in a proper way. So I want to give us two shining examples of individuals right now who have exercised incredible broad thinking, feeling, animating vision. The first is an IDF soldier by the name of Ben Sussman. And sadly, he was killed last week serving in Gaza. As many soldiers do, he wrote a letter to his loved ones that they would open in case, God forbid, he didn't return, which sadly he did not. And I want to quote to you a portion of his letter because it is a striking example of the kind of magnanimous understanding and leadership that is truly exemplary. He wrote, I'm writing this letter to you as I'm heading to the base. If you're reading this, something must have happened to me. You know me. No one could be happier than me right now. It was no coincidence that I was on the verge of fulfilling my dream. I am happy and grateful for the privilege I have to defend our beautiful land and beautiful people of Israel. In case something happened to me, I forbid you from sulking in sorrow. I had the privilege of fulfilling my dream and destiny. And then he goes on to describe how, if God forbid you are sitting Shiva, transform it into a week of friends and family and fun. And he talks about the food that he hopes will be served. And then he says, I forbid you, if I am captured, dead or alive, to exchange me for somebody who will do harm to our people. I am filled with pride and a sense of purpose, and I always said that if I had to die, I wish it would be in defense of others and this state. This is Rosh Gadol. This is Lev Gadol. This is an extraordinary example. How many of us would be able to show such courage and such largesse, and something which we really need to look at as an example during these times when it is so easy to sink into pettiness. And here is the second example. A poem that was written by the mother of one of the hostages. Her name is Rachel Goldberg. She's the mother of Hirsch Poland Goldberg, whose arm was shot off, you may recall, and who is still in Gaza, along with over 100 men, women, children, toddlers, and babies, and he has not been released. So his mother, who has been going and speaking on his behalf and on behalf of the other hostages, she wrote a poem which is extraordinary, and I want to share it with us. It's called One Tiny Seed. There is a lullaby that says your mother will cry 1,000 tears before you grow to be a man. I have cried 1,000,000 tears in the last 67 days. We all have. And I know that way over there, there's another woman who looks just like me because we are all so very similar, and she has also been crying. All those tears, a sea of tears, they all taste the same. Can we take them, gather them up, remove the salt, and pour them over our desert of despair and plant one tiny seed, a seed wrapped in fear, trauma, pain, war, and hope, and see what grows? Could it be that this woman, so very like me, that she and I could be sitting together in 50 years, laughing without teeth, because we have drunk so much sweet tea together, and now we are so very old, and our faces are creased like worn-out brown paper bags, and our sons have their own grandchildren, and our sons have long lives, one of them without an arm, but who needs an arm? Who needs two arms anyway? Is it all a dream, a fantasy, a prophecy? One tiny seed. These are times of tension, times of violence, times of hatred. What is called for during these times is Rosh Gadol, a large way of thinking, Lev Gadol, an expanded way of feeling, Neshama Gadolah, an expanded soulfulness. Can we truly say and believe and propose Kulanu b'nei ish echad nachnu, that we are all brothers and sisters within the Jewish people, beyond the Jewish people? Can university leaders truly believe and advocate for the safety of each and every student because all are brothers and sisters? Can those who are defending Israel continue to join in a spirit of unity on behalf of our people? Is it possible that the largesse, the magnanimity, the Rosh Gadol, the Lev Gadol, the Neshama Gedolah of a woman who wants to see her son, can her largesse serve as an inspiration for each and every one of us? I hope so. Things are very, very small, but we need to find the strength to open things up, to make them larger, so that our people and all people can benefit. Shabbat Shalom.